Streaming on clickorlando.com, you're watching News 6 at 10.
Now on News 6, more freeze warnings are out. Another bitter cold night and morning is coming. And meteorologist Jonathan Kagas says record cold weather is days away.
So, like, they'll chase someone straight through the grass. You know what I mean? So I'm a lot of times scared to have my kids outside.
New at 10, that mom isn't the only one fed up with crime at her apartment complex. Why one city just officially declared this a nuisance. From Minneapolis to Texas to right here in Central Florida, anti-ICE protesters are making their voices heard. How they turned up the heat at a local congressman's town hall tonight. And the end of an era, 6 decades of history meets the wrecking ball. We're asking what's next for the area where a Frito-Lay plant is coming down. But of course, we have to start again tonight with those freeze warnings now in effect for most local counties. And if it doesn't freeze, you could wake up to frost. We're talking lows in the 30s, even 20s again tonight. Let's get right over to meteorologist Jonathan Kagas. Once we get through this, I've been saying this now for a few nights, Jonathan, colder air is coming.
If you were to DVR this newscast, it's pretty much going to be the same thing. Get used to the freeze warnings. They'll probably go away tomorrow night for most of us because that's our subtle warm-up. And then the bottom's going to fall out as we get into Saturday, Sunday, and into Monday. Those will be back, and you're going to be hearing your phone ding if you have the free News 6 weather app, which I highly recommend as we talk to you through the app with our push alerts all the time. 43 degrees in DeLand right now. We're at 35 in Ocala, 37 in Denellen. Again, we're falling back to the same ballpark where we've been over the past couple of nights. So there's nothing new in terms of the cold coming in for tonight. But if you haven't protected your plants yet, they're probably already dead. So it's not worth it anymore, but keep them covered again for the next couple of nights and through the weekend. 36 in Sanford is what you're going to wake up to tomorrow. 38 in New Smyrna Beach. Pair of upper 20s for us in Denellen and Ocala. And again, those freeze warnings in play for most of Central Florida. The only spots immune for getting below 32 degrees right along the coast of Flagler and Volusia County. And then most of Brevard County still could be looking at the frost, as Eric mentioned. We're going to talk much more about that and even the potential for part of Central Florida to see a few flakes, as in snowflakes, as this front comes through on Saturday night. We'll talk about that at about 10:19.
Jonathan, okay, thank you for everything you need to know about the cold. We're talking pipes, shelters, places that have heat. Head to clickorlando.com/freeze guide. We got all those cold weather shelters as well as forecasting and tips to protect your house. Again, clickorlando.com/freeze guide. And our top story tonight, new at 10, the city putting their foot down on a problem apartment complex. Police have had to come out here so many times that Daytona Beach just formally declared this place a public nuisance. We're talking about Daytona Gardens Apartments. That's on Jean Street, right off Nova Road, off South Orange Avenue. News 6's Troy Campbell headed to the complex to see what this nuisance designation means for the people who live there.
When we came out here, there was a lot of kids in the area, just illustrating how many families live here. Now, we spoke with several residents, and they say they hope there are changes made after this property was officially declared a nuisance.
Hi, my name is Lieutenant Kim Gerner of the Special Projects and Community Initiatives Division of the Daytona Beach Police Department.
The Daytona Beach Police Department posting this video to social media on Wednesday, officially declaring the Daytona Gardens apartment complex as a nuisance.
You just saw that video. You saw some of that crime scene. Some of it looks even close to your home.
Yeah, right behind my room window. So I've seen the police chase several people down.
Karina Pringle says she's lived in the complex for the past 4 years with her young children. She says too often she sees law enforcement activity outside her window.
Like, they'll chase someone straight through the grass. You know what I mean? So I'm a lot of times scared to have my kids outside. I'm always like, I've gained to have anxiety living here.
The Daytona Beach Police Department says last Thursday, it got the Nuisance Abatement Board to declare the complex a nuisance after it presented evidence from several violent crimes that have taken place at the complex since November.
We're committed to improving quality of life for our residents, businesses, and visitors to our great city.
The department says they are currently speaking to the complex owner, negotiating stipulations that the property will be required to abide by for the next year for accountability.
And how would you describe some of the police activity scenes here from even the last few months?
Well, It's been a lot of police activity. I can't lie.
Carolyn Green has lived in the complex for the past year. She says she welcomes changes because she's concerned for the safety of the children in the area.
Well, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. That would be a great idea if they can get it together and just get this place the way it should be for safety, for the little ones, for everyone.
I also walked inside the leasing office. A representative told me that the manager wouldn't be available to speak to until Thursday. And of course, we will continue to keep you updated on when those improvements are made. In Daytona Beach, Troy Campbell, News 6.
Tonight, tensions between ICE and protesters is still high in several corners of the nation. Our sister station in San Antonio, Texas, says that their reporter was among those gassed tonight outside an immigration detention center. That's where 5-year-old Liam Ramos and his father are being held after being arrested in Minneapolis. A federal judge temporarily barred federal immigration officials from deporting them. In Minnesota, Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar says that she will not be intimidated. This time last night, word broke that she was pepper sprayed by an angry man at a town hall. Tonight, Omar said that she was told the smelly substance was apple cider vinegar and that the attacker will face federal and state charges. Tonight, Republican Congressman Corey Mills faced protest at a town hall of his own in Volusia County, and ICE here was a main topic, including reports ICE may be building a detention center in Orlando. We were first to report that. News 6's Ashley Garrett is here tonight.
So yeah, I'm outside of the Brannon Center here in New Smyrna, Florida, in preparation for tonight's town hall with Florida Representative Corey Mills. There's already been a lot of activity out here today. We've seen at least 24 officers with the New Smyrna Police. We've seen about a group of 8 women who go by the name of Raging Grannies, which looks to be in support of Preti, who was shot and killed over the weekend in Minneapolis. If you follow me here, you can see a sign that reads "No video or audio recording permitted at this town hall." We were, however, allowed to take pics inside the town hall. That's what you're looking at right now. At the start, I noticed at least 100 guests inside. Questions for Representative Mills were written and accepted before the event. The first question reads, "I'm a brown person. What are you going to do to keep all constituents safe, not just the ones who look like you?" This question immediately got a round of applause. The question went on to read, "What about arresting members of ICE wrongfully shooting and killing Americans? How are you going to protect your district from ICE?" Mills says, quote, "I think we need to tone down the dangerous rhetoric." He mentioned his son is half Middle Eastern before saying he agrees there is hate in this world, and he addressed why ICE agents wear masks. He said it is to protect their identity, keeping them safe. To that, a guest in the crowd shouted, "When you behave legally, you won't need a mask." A man shouted, "Alex Preti," that's the VA nurse shot and killed by ICE in Minneapolis, was executed, to which Representative Mills said authorities are still reviewing evidence, and so far evidence seems to not confirm an execution. Mills got a roaring boo to that and some words of profanity too. And as you can see, that meeting is just wrapping up. We can tell you at some points, Representative Mills did appear to be aggravated with some questions and some folks in the crowd, even responding at one point saying, "Are you going to let me continue, or are you going to continue bumbling like a moron?" He is having another town hall this week, one actually scheduled for Thursday evening, and that one will be held in Oviedo. But for now, we'll send things back to you in Volusia County. Ashley Garrett, News 6.
From demolition day for a 6-decade-old plant to a terrifying surprise for a couple who ended up dodging bullets while they were cooking in their kitchen. Matt Austin and Ginger Gadsden have the other stories making headlines in Central Florida earlier today.
So just imagine if your neighbor in an apartment starts spraying rounds from an assault rifle right into your home.
An Orlando couple says it happened to them. Orlando police were called to the Studio Park Apartments on South Kirkman Road near Conroy Road 2 weeks ago. A couple says that they were in their kitchen cooking when they heard loud bangs on the wall their unit shared with their neighbor. When it stopped, they say shots started.
So officers go into the apartment where the shots came from through an open front door. Nobody's inside. They saw bullet holes through the oven, out the window, through the bedroom and bathroom walls. In all, 25 spent rifle casings found in the living room, and the rifle was under the couch. And officers found mail and prescriptions belonging to this guy, Kevin Anderson, a convicted felon who's not even allowed to own guns. He was arrested, charged with attempted felony murder and aggravated assault.
Well, this is the true end of an era in Central Florida. The Frito-Lay plant on John Young Parkway and Silver Star Road in Orlando, it's being torn down.
Yeah, it started pumping out chips back in the mid-'60s when it shut down 2 months ago. Close to 500 men and women lost their jobs.
Your Orange County community correspondent Tylisa Hampton shows us the demo work and asks what comes next.
Bending and breaking down metal. The demolition of the Frito-Lay plant in Orlando has begun after PepsiCo announced last year it would close 2 facilities, laying off 500 employees. The company has said the decision for the closure and demo was driven by business needs. Pepsi says workers will get transition assistance, career support, and pay and benefits through the process. Although there's been no word yet on what could happen to this property after this demo, we did learn from County Commissioner Michael Scott's office they are still planning to further help people who lost their job.
It's devastating.
That was Scott back in December when the county held a career fair in the wake of the layoffs.
I just pray that everybody here who's looking for a job will get what they need.
However, weeks later, his office says many workers are still looking for a new job. Now his office is in the early stages of planning another job fair, specifically for those workers who may have a harder time finding their next paycheck. And again, that office says they're in the early stages of planning this next career fair. There's not even a date set, but they did say they want to make sure that they can help as many employees as possible. Reporting in Orange County, I'm News 6's Tylisa Hampton.
Well, it is hard to believe, but today marks 40 years since the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster.
Yeah, it devastated morale at NASA and broke the heart of a nation. The accident happened just 73 seconds into the flight from Kennedy Space Center, killing all 7 astronauts, including teacher in space Krista McCullough. January 28th, 1986 was also unusually cold, 36 degrees at liftoff. That's about 15 degrees colder than any prior shuttle launch.
And that extreme cold could have caused ice buildup on the pad. Challenger was doomed because that cold caused O-rings to shrink and allowed hot gas to seep through the seams of that right solid rocket booster. And of course, it ultimately exploded.
And as we remember that sad day, NASA is now gearing up for its next big mission, the first crewed launch to the moon since 1972. The agency says as soon as this weekend, it could go through a so-called wet dress rehearsal on the enormous Space Launch System rocket.
So that includes fueling this up and then doing a practice countdown. If the test goes well, the mission to send astronauts around the moon and back could happen, maybe in the next few weeks. Mission managers say they're taking extra steps to protect that rocket from these very cold temperatures.
Fingers crossed.
Well, for a daily conversational look at breaking news and stories shaping up around Central Florida, you can join us for News 6 at 3.
Yeah, Matt and I are there live every weekday, and we hope you'll join us.
Still ahead, a couple is complaining about a controversial encounter with U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, and it happened as they came home on a flight to MCO. The letter that has airport and city leaders taking notice.
We're not the only ones dealing with a cold snap this week. We're here at Gatorland to talk to the experts about how alligators cope with the cold.
You're watching News 6 on a Wednesday night, covering DeBary, DeLand, and all of Central Florida.
This portion of the news is sponsored by Central Florida Honda Dealers.
Now on News 6 at 10, hostile and confrontational. That's how a passenger described his interaction with Border Patrol at the Orlando International Airport. As your Orlando community correspondent Mike Valente uncovered, that complaint has now been sent to the mayor and the head of the airport.
Impulsive, erratic, and unnecessarily confrontational. That's how a passenger described the behavior of a U.S. Customs and Border Protection officer after the passenger returned here to MCO from a vacation abroad. That man then relayed this formal complaint to Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings, who sits on the airport board. An aide to Demings sent this email last Friday to the airport CEO, Lance Little, requesting a briefing. Attached was this complaint by a man who had an interaction with a CBP officer earlier this month. The traveler recalled airport Q staff telling him to proceed to a customs lane. But when he and his girlfriend did so, the man claimed the officer in question said they should not have approached. And he said the officer displayed behavior that was, quote, hostile, confrontational, and disproportionate to the situation. The man claimed the CBP officer said kicking them out of line was within his power. The traveler claimed the officer accused him of drinking the entire time the man was out of the country. He went on to accuse the officer of directing inappropriate personal comments to the man's girlfriend, claiming the officer, quote, demandingly asked why she was not married to me and questioned why she was single.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail.
We did reach out to CBP Tuesday and Wednesday. Our messages have not yet been returned. On Saturday, airport CEO Lance Little responded to the mayor, writing, quote, based on the information provided, the allegations described are concerning and, if substantiated, would not align with the professional standards that both GOA and CBP expect at our airport. So the airport does not have authority over federal agents, but Lance Little did tell Mayor Demings that he would review the matter with the head of CBP here at Orlando International Airport. As for the airport, a spokesperson did send me a statement Wednesday saying that Little's email represents the airport's position and that the airport is constantly looking for ways to elevate MCO. I'm your Orange County community correspondent, Mike Valente, News 6.
We are not the only ones struggling to stay warm this week. We know that iguanas can't hang with the cold because they drop. But what about alligators? News 6's Catherine Silva.
How do gators handle cold weather?
You know, honestly, they're actually really good. So naturally, alligators live as far north as North Carolina and as far west as Texas. So there's gators in other states that are used to freezing temperatures, of course. Here in Florida, doesn't freeze too much, at least not here in Central Florida. So these guys, you know, and gals just really stay in the water. It's a lot warmer than the air.
They're like us. They want warm water or warm sun.
Exactly. You know, for reptiles, you know, to go from 35, 36 degrees as a low to, we're talking 25, 26, you know, a 10-degree difference on the weekend. That's a lot for a reptile.
We know other animals will hibernate. What do alligators do?
So here in Florida, they don't necessarily hibernate, but where you get into those other states further north, a little more west, where you have some, where the water freezes, you get more freezing temperatures, they do a form of hibernation called brumation. And basically they stick their nose above the surface of the water, let the water freeze around them, and a day, 2 days, maybe a week at the most, that it takes a few inches of ice to thaw out, they go on their merry way.
Alligators are like the ultimate survivor in a lot of ways. They've been doing this for years and years and years.
At least this species, 37 million years is how long the American alligator's been on the earth. So this isn't the only cold snap that they've gone through in their lifetime. I think they can sense that it's gonna cool down, winter's coming. They might eat a little more, you know, to kind of beef up a little bit.
They're saying hi.
They are saying hi this morning. That's called bellowing.
That's not a burr?
No, it's not a burr, not at all. But it could be, you know, hey, this is my spot. This is where I want to be. Don't stand in my sunspot.
They certainly prefer the heat.
They definitely do.
All right, checking in again with our meteorologist, Jonathan Kegas, who is very important, even more important this week. because of what we got going on. More freeze warnings, Jonathan, leading up to that big freeze.
Yeah, we do. This is kind of the appetizer for the full course coming in the pipeline. Again, it is cold. This would be cold on a normal standard. What is coming is pretty abnormal for the state of Florida. We're at 39 right now in New Smyrna. We're at 44 in Titusville. Already at the freezing mark in Wildwood. We are close to it by a few degrees in Denellen and in Ocala. Again, as we drop towards the freezing mark, that's why we do have those freeze warnings in place. Again, we keep on talking about this. You're going to hear about the freeze warnings almost every night from this point out. To think we'll drop them for the most part as we get towards Thursday to Friday, but then we'll get them back in a big way Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of next week as we are in this frigid air for a long time. Temperatures back to the upper 40s now under a mainly clear sky. That's a live look downtown Orlando with our Light Orlando Delivering Hope Skycam. Wind has shifted a little bit out of the west-southwest. That's going to help to, relatively speaking, pump in a little bit of warmth tomorrow. It's not much more. It's subtle, but we'll take what we can get at this point. We're at 28 overnight, 28 in Denellen for us in Ocala and Denellen. Mount Dora, we're starting off around 34. Sanford about 36. Again, getting close to the freezing mark. That is why those freeze warnings are in play. Again, it will kill that sensitive vegetation. Again, if you haven't covered them already, they are probably already been susceptible to the danger of the cold. Back to the upper 50s in Daytona Beach tomorrow, 59. In Palm Coast, hanging around 60. New Smyrna, Kissimmee, we are at 64 degrees. Then we're talking about this. Our next air mass, it's chilling literally up towards the Great Lakes, Northeast, Upper Midwest. A big storm system is going to develop around the Carolinas this weekend, and it is just going to grab all of that cold air and send it right on down the Florida Peninsula back to the lower 20s. This is actual air temperature on Sunday. 22 in Ocala, 22 in the Villages, 26 in Orlando, and some of those numbers might even be colder than currently forecast. This is a big-time cold air mass coming through. It is going to be windy as well, so if you're outside, it will feel kind of ugly Sunday morning. 12 in Leesburg, 10 in Sanford. That's the wind chill again because it is going to be super gusty. There's the front coming through early on Saturday. The highs will be reached Saturday morning, and they will plummet throughout the day on Saturday. There's 11:44 in the morning. Most of us are on the drier side. I want to show you this. Look at the blue popping back up. We have the opportunity. It's going to be cold enough to get some Gulf effect snow, mainly west of Orlando. It's not going to accumulate, but do not be surprised the further west you are if you do see some slushy flakes mixed in with some ice pellets and some rain. You see the blue there on the map indicating that potential. You see it coming right off the Gulf there. Nice little burst around Lakeland, Bartow, and Polk County closer to Tampa. That's going to be your best opportunity, relatively speaking anyway, to see that Saturday evening into Saturday night into the first few hours of Sunday morning before we shift the wind direction due north, and it's straight over land. Back to the upper 60s on Friday, and then temperatures plummet all day. That 57 you see there, that's deceiving. That will happen in the morning. We will fall through the 40s and bottom out in the low to mid 20s by Sunday morning, Eric.
All right. Thank you, sir. But you know, the beach isn't so bad during a cold snap as long as you stay out of the water. So next at 10, we're headed to the beach and showing you the best way, hot or cold, to capture pictures of those cute but quick little guys. We'll be right back.
What's up, beaches? Today on Everyday Wild, we're at the Atlantic Ocean looking for sanderlings. They're actually behind me. Okay, confession time. I always just thought these birds hated getting their feet wet. Turns out, I'm sort of right. They run from the waves because they are tiny. So while it looks like they're fleeing a crime scene, really, they're just living on the edge, gobbling up the tiny crustaceans the waves rip from the sand, and then getting out of Dodge before the ocean yeets them back to Te Fiti. Like true Floridians, sanderlings are snowbirds, migrating thousands of miles every year to spend their winters with surfers, tourists, and way too tan grandparents. Taking pictures at the beach comes with some challenges. My camera is covered in sand. I'm also covered in sand. The sand, the water, or this is the part where I get really dirty. The half-naked humans looking at you funny. But if you can handle all that, I have to drive home after this. You're rewarded with trying to photograph a tiny bird that runs fast. Oh, where did they go? Wrong bird. There you are. I'm so fast. You're going to miss a lot of shots. But if you go later in the day, you get to capture the bedtime routine. A snack, a bath, a little preening, and a nap. But the best part? Those beachy vibes. All right, all the birds left. Guess we'll go too. This bird. That's it for today, humans. Go to the beach, take pictures of dinosaurs, and post your photos on clickorlando.com/pins.
It's all about the cold air, Eric.
Yeah.
This weekend, 20s, maybe a few flakes.
Yes, and again tonight, leading right up to this weekend. We'll be back at 11 o'clock. See you then.